Welcome to the fourth part of making a t-shirt. If you made it this far, you are just one step away from finishing your shirt. I'm going to show you how to do a blind hem, which is a really cool stitch to know. When done correctly, you can't even see a blind hem, hence the name. This is a hem I did on a different shirt. This is one of my favorite hems because it's super low profile and it just has these tiny little threads tacking it together. And it holds up really well and is stretchy. If you have a cover stitch machine, you can do that stitch instead. If you don't know what a cover stitch machine is, it's basically a really expensive machine that makes these really nice hems that you see on shirts at the store. It has double or triple stitching on the front, and on the back it has this really nice and secure stitching. I'm not going to talk about using cover stitch machines for this tutorial because most people probably don't have them. And if you know how to do the blind hem, you actually don't need a cover stitch machine unless you really love that look. To do this kind of hem, you need a machine that has this stitch setting. It's a straight stitch with an occasional zigzag. My machine is, I guess, kind of vintage at this point, so yours probably has this on like a cool digital display. But folding your fabric to make a blind hem is a little confusing. To see how it works, I'm going to show you on this shirt that I already made. To sew this, you're going to fold up the hem like this, and then fold the shirt again, and you're going to sew along this raw edge of fabric. This part of the stitch is a straight stitch, and the zigzag is what goes in and catches the fabric on the front side. Getting your head wrapped around the folding technique is a little bit tricky, so we're going to walk through it really slowly. Honestly, every time I make a blind hem, I forget how to do it, so I have this little piece of scrap fabric to remind me. It helps me remember how to fold the fabric and where to sew. So on our t-shirt, I recommend starting with the bottom hem because it's longer and gives you more room to work with. To sew a blind hem on your shirt, fold your fabric up by about 1 inch, and then you're going to press this all the way around your shirt. So now I have my fabric pressed along the entire bottom hem of my shirt. The next thing we're going to do is pick this up and tuck it under the body of the shirt. After folding the hem you just pressed underneath the shirt, you're going to pull out about 1/4 inch of the raw edge from the fabric. You should have your fold underneath the fabric here and the raw edge sticking out. To make this a little easier, you can press this again so that this fold stays nice and crisp. So this doesn't look much different, but this is what it looks like after pressing for the second time. The next step is to pin all the way around your shirt. I normally like to use quilting clips for my sewing, but for this I find pins are easier to work with. When pinning, you want to catch both layers of the fold. As you're pinning, remember to keep an even amount of the raw edge sticking out all the way around the shirt. On my sewing machine, I'm using a walking foot, which lifts up and down as you sew, and it pulls the fabric through evenly. You can also use a regular foot if you don't have a walking foot. For doing a blind hem, there's actually a special blind hemming foot, which I just learned about recently, so I don't actually have one. A blind hemming foot has a bar in the middle that's supposed to keep your fabric laying properly as you're sewing it. Before sewing on your actual shirt, I recommend practicing on a piece of scrap fabric. You might need to change your stitch length or other settings to make it work properly. When you're sewing this stitch, you need to be just far enough away from the fold that the zigzag just catches the fabric. And this is why we practice. Here I was too far away, so it didn't catch, and there's going to be a gap here. When sewing a blind hem, I don't actually backstitch. I'll just start at the seam, and when I come back around to it, I'll stitch back over my original stitching, and this holds it in place. Sewing over these bulky seams can be a little bit difficult, so I like to hand crank my machine to help it get over these seams. Here I'm back to the stitches where I started, and I'm just going to go back over these for about 1 inch. And here's where I went over my stitches, and you can see on the other side, it's barely noticeable. After stitching all the way around your shirt, I recommend pressing your hem because that's going to make it look really nice. Sometimes you may need to pull the fabric a little bit to get those stitches to really pop out. After pressing, you'll have a really nice invisible hem. You really have to stare at it to see the little tack marks holding this hem together. Now, this is not the most stretchy hem in the entire world, but it's much stretchier than just using regular straight stitch. When you're done hemming the bottom of your shirt, you can repeat the exact same process on the sleeves. Remember, you're going to fold the hem up by about an inch, press it, and then fold it under again like this, leaving a 1/4 inch of raw fabric, and press this. After pressing a second time, you'll pin it and sew it like we just did for the bottom of your shirt.